Pearl Whitaker stood at the head of the wagon train as the sun crept over the plains, painting the sky in streaks of amber and dust rose. 23 wagons stretched behind her like a slow-moving river of hope, each one carrying families, dreams, and everything they owned. Children stirred beneath canvas covers, oxen stamped the cold from their hooves, and the wind whispered warnings through the tall grass. Pearl ignored the whispers. She had learned long ago that fear only grew when listened to. What she could not ignore was the man leaning against the hitching post outside the trading outpost. Samuel Crowe. He looked like trouble, the way a storm looks like rain, quiet, unavoidable, and heavy with consequence. His hat sat low, shadowing eyes that had seen too much. A scar cut across his jaw, pale against sun-darkened skin. His gun belt was worn smooth, not decorative like those carried by men pretending to be dangerous. This one had been used. Pearl squared her shoulders and walked toward him. "You're Samuel Crowe," she said, not a question. He glanced up, eyes sharp as flint. "Depends who's asking. I'm Pearl Whitaker. I lead that wagon train." She gestured behind her. "And I need protection." Samuel snorted softly. "You and everyone else west of the river." "This isn't everyone else," Pearl replied evenly. "Families, children, widows, we're heading to Oregon. We've already lost 2 wagons to sickness and 1 man to a rattler. I won't lose more to bandits." Samuel pushed off the post and stood to his full height. He was taller than she expected. "Then hire soldiers. Or pray harder." "I tried both," she said. "Soldiers cost more than we have. Prayer brought me here." That earned a flicker of something in his eyes. Amusement, maybe, or bitterness. "I'm done guarding wagon trains," he said. "They pay late, complain early, and blame you when things go wrong." Pearl met his gaze without flinching. "I pay on time. I don't complain. And if something goes wrong, I look to fix it, not point fingers." Samuel studied her like a card player, deciding whether to fold. "You're a woman." "Yes," she said simply. And you're leading men twice your size across hostile land." "Only hostile if you don't know how to move through it," Pearl replied. "I've made this trip once already. I came back for my people." That gave him pause. She reached into her satchel and pulled out a small pouch, heavy with coins. "Half now, half in Oregon. You ride ahead, circle the flanks, and keep trouble away if you can. If not," she glanced at his gun, "you handle it." Samuel weighed the pouch in his hand, then looked past her at the wagons. A little girl peeked out from behind a wheel, clutching a rag doll. An older man struggled to lift a barrel, helped by a boy barely old enough to shave. "This isn't my kind of redemption," Samuel muttered. "I'm not offering redemption," Pearl said. "I'm offering work." Silence stretched between them, filled by the creak of leather and the low calls of drovers. Finally, Samuel nodded once. "We do this my way. You follow my instructions when danger comes." Pearl smiled, not soft, not sweet, but steady. "You protect my people, Mr. Crowe, and you'll find I listen very well." Samuel mounted his horse and tipped his hat. "We'll see, Miss Whitaker." Trust is forged mile by mile. As the wagon train lurched forward and Samuel rode ahead into the rising sun, Pearl felt it, the first fragile thread of hope, tightening into resolve. By the 3rd day on the trail, the rhythm of the wagon train settled into Pearl's bones. Dawn meant movement. Noon meant rationed water and quick repairs. Evening meant prayers, spoken softly, and fires kept low. Through it all, Samuel Crowe rode ahead like a shadow that never fully left. He kept his distance. Samuel scouted the ridgelines at sunrise, circled wide at midday, and fell back to the rear near dusk. He spoke only when necessary, short commands, clipped warnings, the occasional grunt when someone asked a foolish question. The men watched him with wary respect. The women whispered guesses about his past. Pearl said nothing. She observed. Samuel noticed everything. Wagon wheels that wobbled, tracks that didn't belong, Birds that took flight to suddenly he corrected mistakes before they turned costly, and though he never raised his voice, people listened. Fear had a way of sharpening attention. Late afternoon on the fourth day, Pearl rode up beside him while the train crossed a narrow stretch of land hemmed in by scrub and stone. "You've been quiet," she said. Samuel didn't look at her. "Quiet keeps folks alive. So does communication." He glanced at her then, one brow lifting. "You questioning how I do my job?" "I'm trying to understand it," Pearl replied. "If trouble comes, I need to know what you see." Samuel studied her for a long moment, then sighed. "Fine, you see that ridge?" He nodded toward a rise to the south. "Bandits like to watch from there. Haven't seen any sign yet, but this stretch is where trains get careless, tired, thirsty." Pearl nodded. "We'll push through before dusk." "That's risky. So is stopping here." A corner of his mouth twitched. "You don't scare easy." "I don't have the luxury," she said. They rode in silence for a time, dust curling around their horses' legs. Finally, Samuel spoke again. "You lost someone." Pearl stiffened. "Excuse me. People don't take on this kind of responsibility without losing something first," he said. "Husband, brother." Pearl's jaw tightened. "My father. He led our first train, trusted the wrong guide. We buried him 2 days east of Fort Laramie." Samuel's gaze softened. "Just a fraction? I'm sorry." "So am I," Pearl said. "That's why I don't trust easily. Yet, you hired me." "By trust patterns," she replied. "And men who avoid attention usually know how to survive." Samuel let out a low breath. "You're sharper than you look." "Careful," she said. That almost sounded like a compliment. As evening approached, Samuel suddenly raised a fist. The wagon slowed, then stopped. Pearl rode forward. "What is it?" "Tracks," he said, crouching. "Fresh, 3 riders, maybe 4. A ripple of unease spread through the train. Samuel stood. "They're watching us. Testing." Pearl's voice carried as she turned to the others. "Circle the wagons. Keep children inside. No fires tonight." One of the men hesitated. "Miss Whitaker." "That's not a suggestion," she said firmly. Samuel watched her issue orders, noting the calm authority in her tone. When the wagons were secured, he rode the perimeter, rifle ready, senses taut. Night fell heavy and still. Hours passed. No attack came. At dawn, the tracks were gone. "They moved on," Samuel said. Pearl exhaled slowly. "Because of you." "Because of preparation," he replied. Then, after a pause, "And because they saw you don't panic." Pearl met his eyes. "Trust is forged, mile by mile," she said. Samuel nodded once. For the first time since the journey began, he rode closer to the wagons. Not close, but closer. The land changed as the wagon train pressed Westhopen Plains, tightening into rocky cuts and shallow ravines, where sound carried and danger liked to hide. By the 7th day, even the children sensed it. Laughter faded quicker. Eyes scanned the horizon more often. Hands lingered near tools that could double as weapons. Samuel felt it in his bones. He rode back to Pearl at mid-morning. Reins loose, but posture alert. "This pass ahead narrows. If they're coming, it'll be there." Pearl nodded. "We'll move tight. No stragglers." They entered the pass just as the sun climbed overhead, heat bouncing off stone walls on either side. The wagons creaked louder here, wheels scraping rock, oxen snorting uneasily. Then it happened. A rifle cracked from above. The lead wagon's canvas tore open, and a shout of panic rippled through the train. "Down," Samuel roared. 2 more shots rang out. A bullet struck a wheel, splintering wood. Horses screamed. Samuel spurred his horse forward, swinging his rifle up in one smooth motion. He fired toward the ridge, smoke blooming around him. A body tumbled from view. Pearl didn't freeze. "Circle up," she shouted. "Now." Men and women moved fast, dragging wagons into position as Samuel and 2 able-bodied men returned fire. Bandits appeared along the ridge, 5 of them, maybe 6, thinking they'd found easy prey. They were wrong. Samuel climbed partway up the rocky slope, using boulders for cover. He fired with deadly calm, each shot measured. One bandit fled. Another dropped his gun and scrambled back. A rider charged from behind, trying to break through the rear wagons. Pearl saw him first. She grabbed a rifle from a crate, her father's old one, and took aim. Her hands shook only once. She fired. The rider veered, shouting, and disappeared in a cloud of dust, wounded but alive. Samuel saw it all. Within minutes, it was over. The bandits scattered, leaving blood and silence behind. Samuel slid down the rocks and approached Pearl. "You shouldn't have fired." Pearl's eyes flashed. He was going to reach the wagons. "I know," he said. "But you put yourself in danger." "So did you?" Their words hung between them, sharp with adrenaline. A man groaned nearby. One of the drovers had taken a grazing shot to the arm. Samuel moved instantly, tearing cloth for a bandage. "He'll live." Pearl knelt beside them, steadying the injured man, her voice calm as she spoke. Only when the work was done did she step away, hands trembling now that it was over. Samuel noticed. That night, fires were allowed again, small ones. People spoke in hushed voices, grateful and shaken. Samuel sat apart, cleaning his rifle. Pearl approached, holding a tin cup. "Coffee," she said. He hesitated, then took it. "You did well today." "So did you." Silence stretched easier now. "I didn't expect you to shoot," Samuel admitted. "I didn't expect to," Pearl replied, "but I will protect my people." Samuel studied her face in the firelight, strong, determined, carrying grief and resolve in equal measure. "Most men I've worked for would have panicked." "I'm not most men." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "No, you're not." The wind shifted, carrying the scent of sage and gunpowder. For the first time since he'd joined the wagon train, Samuel allowed himself to think something dangerous, that he cared whether Pearl Whitaker made it to Oregon. And that scared him more than any bandit ever had. The days after the ambush carried a different kind of quiet. Not the tense silence of fear, but the thoughtful hush that follows survival. The wagon train moved slower now, wheels repaired, nerves still raw. Yet there was a subtle shift. People trusted the road again, and they trusted Pearl. They trusted Samuel. Children waved when he rode past. Men nodded instead of staring. Even the oxen seemed calmer when he scouted ahead. Samuel accepted it without comment, though it sat uneasily on his shoulders. Trust had a way of becoming a burden. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in copper and violet, Pearl found Samuel sitting apart from the camp, staring into the distance. "You keep watch long after your turn," she said gently. "Habit," he replied. She dismounted and sat beside him, the ground still warm beneath them. "You saved lives back there." "So did you." Pearl folded her hands in her lap. "You never talk about where you learned to fight like that." Samuel's jaw tightened. "There's not much to say." "I think there is," she said. "People don't carry that kind of calm without paying for it." He was quiet for a long time. The campfire crackled behind them. "I rode with a posse once," Samuel finally said. "Not lawmen, hired guns. We were supposed to protect settlers from raiders." Pearl listened without interrupting. "One night, we took the wrong trail," he continued. "Found a camp, thought they were bandits." His voice lowered. "They weren't." Pearl's breath caught. By the time the truth came out, it was too late, Samuel said. "Women, a boy, not much older than 10. He swallowed hard. "I walked away from that life. But walking away doesn't erase things." Pearl reached out, resting her hand lightly on his arm. He stiffened, then didn't pull away. "You stayed to protect others after that," she said. "That matters." "Does it?" he asked bitterly. "It does to the people you saved," Pearl replied. "And to me." Samuel turned to her, then really looked at her. "You shouldn't trust a man like me." "I don't trust who you were," Pearl said softly. "I trust who you choose to be every day." Something in Samuel's expression, crack not, breaking but bending. The next morning, trouble came again, not from bandits, but from the land. A river, swollen from recent rains, blocked their path. The current was strong, unforgiving. "We can't cross here," Samuel said after surveying it. "Too fast." "We don't have weeks to find another route," Pearl replied. "Winter will catch us." Samuel considered the water, then the wagons. "We can do it, but it'll take coordination, and someone has to ride first." "I will," Pearl said. Samuel shook his head. "No. If the current pulls, you'll be gone. So will anyone else." "I won't lose you," he said before he could stop himself. Pearl met his gaze. "Then ride beside me." They crossed together, Samuel guiding the lead wagon, Pearl steadying frightened horses, both soaked and straining against the current. One wagon nearly tipped, but Samuel caught it, muscles screaming as Pearl rallied the others to help. When the last wagon reached the far bank, a cheer rose from the train. Pearl laughed, breathless, water dripping from her hair. Samuel laughed, to an unfamiliar sound, rough and real. In that moment, standing side by side in the fading light, the miles between them vanished. Trust, once cautious and measured, had grown into something deeper, and neither of them could deny it any longer. The wagon train crested the final ridge before the Willamette Valley, the green of the forests and the shimmer of the distant river, promising safety at last. The journey had been long, treacherous, and full of tests, yet here they were, families alive, wagons intact, spirits unbroken. Pearl looked over her people, her chest swelling with pride and exhaustion. Samuel rode beside her, keeping his usual careful distance, though closer than he had for weeks. He had earned the right to be here, to see this moment, and she allowed it without thought. "Almost there," Pearl said softly, almost to herself. Samuel glanced at her. "You've done good, Miss Whitaker. Better than most I've seen at the head of a train." Pearl gave him a small smile, the kind that touched her eyes first. "We did it together, Samuel." He tipped his hat. "We made it because you never gave up, because you kept your people moving, even when it was easier to give in." For a long moment, they rode in silence, the weight of the journey settling into a quiet companionship neither had expected. Then Pearl spoke again. "You know, I didn't just hire you for protection." Samuel raised a brow, curiosity tugging at him. "I hired you because I knew I could rely on you. And along the way, I realized I didn't just rely on you. I counted on you." Samuel felt the warmth of her words, more than he expected. He looked out over the wagons, at the children laughing as they ran down the gentle slope toward the river, at families embracing as they sighted the new land. Then he met her gaze again. "I never thought I'd feel this way," he admitted quietly, "after all I've seen." But he hesitated. "But I care, Pearl, more than I thought I could." Pearl's heart tightened. She had felt it too long, slow, dangerous, and unstoppable. She reached out, brushing a strand of dust-streaked hair from his cheek. "And you," she said simply. A soft smile curved Samuel's lips, rare and real. He dropped his hand to hers, fingers brushing in a tentative promise. The world beyond them seemed to hold its breath as two hardened hearts, battered by the road and the past, finally allowed themselves to belong together. Even as the sun set, casting the valley in gold, Pearl and Samuel knew the journey had changed them. Trust had been forged mile by mile. Yes, but love, too, had been born along the dust and danger. Families began setting up camp at the riverbank. Pearl watched them, then looked at Samuel. "What now?" she asked. Samuel shrugged, a rare lightness in his eyes. "Now, we see what kind of life we can build out here, together." Pearl's hand found his again, and they walked toward the camp, side by side. The wagon train behind them, a symbol of hope, realized. And as night fell over the Willamette Valley, the stars above seemed to bless the hard-won journey. Trust had become love. Fear had become courage. And the road, once unforgiving, had led them to each other. As the campfires flickered, Samuel whispered, "Trust and love." Mile by mile. Pearl laughed softly, leaning against him. Exactly. And in that quiet, golden moment, they both knew that the West with all its dangers and wonders, had given them something more precious than safety. It had given them each other. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Western stories.